At 35, I sit in a sleek office overlooking Seattle's skyline, a senior director at a tech firm that's reshaping the industry. My life is a testament to grit. Nice apartment, no debt, a career I fought tooth and nail for. But beneath the polished exterior, there's a wound that never fully heals. When I was 16, my mother threw me out to build a new life with her real family. Now, nearly 2 decades later, she's back, demanding I pay for my half-siblings' college tuition twins I barely know. What happened on my doorstep last month flipped my world upside down, forcing me to confront a past I thought I'd buried. My name is Lena Carter, and my story begins in a cramped apartment above my grandparents' garage in Tacoma, Washington. Mom was 19 when she had me, a single mother abandoned by my biological father. He was a fleeting shadow gone before I could form a memory, leaving no child support or trace. Mom never talked about him, and I learned early not to ask. We didn't have much, but my grandparents were our anchor. Grandpa, a retired mechanic with calloused hands and a warm laugh, taught me to change tires and dream big. Grandma's kitchen was my sanctuary, filled with the smell of her peach cobbler and stories of her youth. Mom, meanwhile, was a force juggling nursing school, part-time jobs, and raising me. She'd come home exhausted, but still braid my hair or read me Charlotte's Web before bed. Those moments felt like love, fragile but real. I didn't see the cracks forming. As a kid, I didn't notice how Mom's shoulders sagged under the weight of her choices, or how her smiles grew rarer. I was too busy climbing trees with Grandpa or helping Grandma in her garden. But looking back, I see it clearly. Mom was young, scared, and desperate to prove she could make it. She did, in her way, graduating with a nursing degree, landing a job at a local clinic, but success came at a cost. And I'd soon learn I was the price she was willing to pay. Life was never easy, but it was ours until Mom met David. That's when everything changed, setting off a chain of events that would shatter our little world and leave me to pick up the pieces alone. When I was 9, Mom met David at the hospital where she worked. He was a pharmacist, older than her, with a quiet confidence and a wardrobe of pressed button-downs. At first, he seemed like a good fit, stable, polite, the kind of guy who paid his bills on time. Mom was smitten, her eyes lighting up in a way I hadn't seen before. "He's different, Lena," she'd say, her voice soft with hope. "He wants a future." I didn't know what that meant, but I wanted her to be happy. So, I smiled and nodded. Even as David's presence began to shift the air in our tiny apartment. They married when I was 12. In a small backyard ceremony at David's parents' house, I wore a pale blue dress that itched at the seams, standing awkwardly as Mom vowed to build a new life. For a while, things were okay. David wasn't warm. He didn't joke like Grandpa or ask about my day, but he wasn't mean either. He treated me like a roommate, someone to nod at in passing. I told myself it was fine. Mom deserved this, didn't she? A chance at a normal family. But normal came with a price. Mom's focus drifted to David, their late-night talks, their weekend drives to antique stores, their plans for a bigger house. Dinners, once loud with our laughter and stories, became quiet affairs, where I felt like an intruder. I'd try to join in, sharing bits about school or a book I was reading, only to be met with distracted smiles or a quick, "That's nice." Lena. I didn't take it personally at first. Mom was building something new, and I wanted to be part of it. So, I worked harder straight A's, cleaning the house without being asked, even learning to cook spaghetti to surprise her. But no matter what I did, I couldn't bridge the growing gap. Then, when I was 14, Mom announced she was pregnant with twins. The news lit up our extended family. Grandma cried happy tears. Grandpa slapped David on the back. I was ecstatic, imagining myself as the cool big sister, teaching the babies to draw or sneaking them ice cream. I started babysitting for neighbors, saving up to buy a stuffed bear for their nursery. But as Mom's belly grew, so did her distance. Every conversation was about the twins' diaper brands, crib designs, names they settled on Mia and Ethan. My stories about school or my art projects were brushed aside. "Not now, Lena," she'd say, her eyes on a baby catalog. "We're busy." When the twins arrived, the house transformed. Bottles cluttered the counters, lullabies replaced our old radio tunes, and Mom's attention vanished entirely. I understood babies needed her, But it wasn't just her time they took. It was her love. Our Sunday pancake mornings, gone. Our late-night chats about her nursing school days, forgotten. I threw myself into helping changing diapers, rocking Ethan to sleep, hoping it would pull her back to me. Instead, she'd snap, "You're doing it wrong," or worse, ignore me completely. David, meanwhile, doted on the twins, his face softening in a way it never did for me. I began to feel like a shadow, fading in their bright new world. By 15, I was desperate. I joined the school art club, hoping my sketches might catch Mom's eye. I won a local contest, my drawing of Grandpa's garage pinned up at the library. I rushed home to tell her, heart pounding with hope. She glanced at it, muttered, "That's nice," and turned back to Mia's fever. That night, I cried into my pillow, the stuffed bear I'd bought for the twins staring at me from the shelf. I wasn't just losing Mom, I was losing myself. The summer I turned 16, everything shattered. It was a humid July evening, the kind where the air sticks to your skin. Mom and David called me to the living room, their faces set like stone. "We need to talk." "Lena," Mom said, her voice flat. I sat on the edge of the couch, my stomach twisting. The twins were asleep upstairs, their soft snores filtering through the baby monitor. I knew this wasn't about a family vacation or a new chore chart. David took the lead, his tone clipped, like he was presenting a case to a jury. "The twins are expensive daycare, doctor visits, the new house payments. We've run the numbers, and we can't keep supporting everyone." I blinked, trying to process supporting everyone. I wore secondhand clothes, ate cereal for dinner most nights, and hadn't asked for anything since I was 12. But before I could speak, Mom cut in, her eyes avoiding mine. "Mia and Ethan need us more. Lena, you're older. You can handle yourself." The words hit like a slap. Not, "We'll figure this out together." Not, "We're struggling, but you're still family." Just a cold, clear message. I was disposable. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, to say it was a mistake, but she just sat there, arms crossed. As David listed more expenses like I was a line item to be cut, I didn't argue. What was the point? My throat burned, but I swallowed the tears. "Fine," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'll go." I packed that night a duffel bag with jeans, a few t-shirts, my sketchbook, and the photo of Grandpa fixing his old Chevy. The stuffed bear I'd bought for the twins stayed on the shelf, a silent witness to my exit. I walked the 3 miles to my grandparents' house in the dark, the streetlights buzzing overhead. When I knocked, Grandma opened the door, her face crumpling as she pulled me into a hug. "Oh, Lena," she whispered, her voice thick with grief. Grandpa paced the kitchen, his fists clenched. "How could she do this?" he muttered. "Her own daughter." They took me in without question, but their small house was already stretched thin. Retired on a fixed income, they could barely cover their own bills. I saw the worry in Grandma's eyes when she paid for groceries, the way Grandpa skipped his morning coffee to save a few bucks. I couldn't be their burden, so I got a job at a diner down the street, scrubbing dishes and wiping tables for $7 an hour. The grease clung to my skin, but the money bought my school supplies and a winter coat. School became a battle, late nights finishing homework after shifts, dragging myself to class on 4 hours of sleep. My grades slipped from A's to B's, but I clung to my dream of college, a lifeline in the chaos. Mom never called, not once. Through family gossip, I heard she and David had upgraded to a bigger house, complete with a swing set for the twins. Photos floated around Mom smiling at Mia's first steps, David pushing Ethan on a tricycle. They looked like the perfect American family, straight out of a sitcom. Meanwhile, I was rationing shampoo and praying my sneakers would last another month. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could 2 working adults, a nurse and a pharmacist, not afford a teenager who cost them next to nothing? It wasn't about money. They'd erased me to make room for their new life, and I was left to survive the fallout. Living with my grandparents gave me a roof, but not a safety net. Their love was unwavering, but their wallet was thin. I worked double shifts at the diner, my hands raw from bleach, to afford basics like notebooks and bus fare. School was my escape, a promise of something better. I'd sketch in the margins of my textbooks dreamy landscapes, portraits of Grandpa, imagining a life where I wasn't defined by my mother's rejection. But as senior year loomed, college felt like a mirage. Acceptance letters from Washington State and a few smaller schools arrived. each one a bittersweet victory. I was thrilled, but terrified. Tuition was a mountain I couldn't climb alone. Against every instinct, I reached out to Mom. I sat in Grandpa's garage, the smell of motor oil grounding me, and typed a message. I got into college. Can you help with financial aid or co-sign a loan? My finger hovered over send, my heart pounding with a stupid flicker of hope. Maybe she'd remember I was her daughter. Maybe she'd care. Her reply came hours later, a knife in my chest. We're saving for Mia and Ethan's future. Can't help. Congrats. No warmth, no pride, just a dismissal. I stared at the screen, tears blurring the words. It wasn't the money that broke me. It was the confirmation that I didn't matter. I might have given up if not for Aunt Clara. She was Mom's older sister, a high school teacher with a no-nonsense warmth. When I told her about Mom's text, her face hardened. That's not right, Lena, she said, her voice steady. I'll co-sign your loans. You focus on getting that degree. I protested. She had her own kids, her own bills, but she waved me off. You're my family, and I believe in you. Always have. Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from the edge. I hugged her, promising myself I'd make her proud. College at Washington State was a grind. I majored in computer science, drawn to its logic and promise of stability, to pay for books and rent. I worked as a barista, a library aide, and started freelancing as a graphic designer for local businesses. My days were a blur. Classes, coding labs, late-night shifts, then hours hunched over my laptop designing logos. Sleep was a luxury. Red Bull was my fuel. I lived in a shoebox apartment with a leaky faucet, eating instant noodles to stretch my budget. But every late night, every sacrificed weekend, was a step toward proving I was enough. Mom's absence was a quiet ache. I'd see her posts on Facebook before I blocked her. Mia and Ethan at a school play, the family at a lake house, all smiles and matching outfits. Each photo was a reminder of the life I'd been cut from. I poured that pain into my work, channeling it into lines of code and intricate designs. When I walked across the stage at graduation, Aunt Clara was in the front row, cheering like I'd won the lottery. Mom wasn't invited. She hadn't earned a place in my victory. After graduation, I moved to Seattle for an entry-level job at a tech startup. The pay was modest, barely enough for a studio apartment with creaky floors and a view of a dumpster. But I was hungry, not for money, but for a chance to prove myself. I dove into every project, staying late to debug code or redesign the company's clunky website. I taught myself advanced programming languages, burning through online courses on weekends. My bosses noticed. A year in, I got a promotion, then another. By 30, I was a senior director, leading a team and pulling a salary I never dreamed of as a kid, scraping by at the diner. Success didn't erase the past. I paid off my student loans, bought a condo with a view of Puget Sound, and started a savings account that felt like a safety net I'd never had. But every milestone came with a quiet ache. Mom was a ghost in my life. No calls, no texts, no acknowledgement of the daughter she'd discarded. Family reunions were tense. I'd hear whispers about her perfect life with David and the twins. A cousin once showed me a photo of them at Disneyland, Mom laughing as Mia hugged Mickey Mouse. I smiled politely and changed the subject, but the image burned. I kept my success quiet, not out of modesty, but self-preservation. I didn't want Mom or David sniffing around. Sensing an opportunity, Aunt Clara was the exception. She knew about every promotion, every late-night breakthrough. "You're a force, Lena," she'd say, her pride warming me like a hearth. She never asked for anything, but I sent her flowers on her birthday and helped with her kids' school supplies. Small ways to honor the woman who'd saved me. The hardest part was letting go of hope. For years, I'd clung to a fantasy that Mom would wake up, realize what she'd done, and beg for forgiveness. I'd imagine her at my door, tears in her eyes, saying, "I was wrong, Lena." But as the years passed, that dream faded. She had her family. David, Mia, Ethan and I wasn't part of it. I built my own life, surrounded by friends who became family and a career that gave me purpose. Yet, deep down, I braced for the day she'd reappear, not with an apology, but with a demand. That day came sooner than I expected, and it would test everything I'd built. At 35, I thought I'd close the door on Mom for good. Then Aunt Clara. ever the peacemaker, let slip about my promotion at a family barbecue. She meant well, hoping it might spark a reconciliation. Instead, it lit a fuse. A week later, I came home to find Mom and David on my doorstep, their faces a mix of entitlement and desperation. I froze, my key still in the lock. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice tight. David pushed past me into my condo, his loafers scuffing my hardwood floor. "We need to talk," he said, like he owned the place. Mom followed, her purse clutched like a shield. "No hello." "No, how have you been?" Just a blunt demand. "We heard you're doing well." David started, his tone sharp. "About time you made something of yourself." I stared, stunned by the audacity. Mom jumped in, her voice rehearsed. "Mia and Ethan are starting college, and we're stretched thin. Since you're making good money, we figured you could cover their tuition." I laughed a short, bitter sound. "Are you serious?" David's eyes narrowed. "Don't act like you can't afford it. You've got no kids, no responsibilities. It's the least you can do." The least I could do. After years of silence, after they threw me out like trash, my blood boiled. "This isn't about money," I said, my voice rising. "You abandoned me. You made it clear I wasn't your family. And now you're here, acting like I owe you." Mom rolled her eyes, her face twisting with disdain. "Oh, Lena, stop playing the victim. I raised you alone for years, sacrificed everything, and look at you living in this fancy place, acting like you're above us. You turned out fine, didn't you?" "Fine." I wanted to scream. I'd clawed my way through diner shifts, loan debt, and nights crying myself to sleep. "I turned out fine despite you," I snapped. "No thanks to either of you." David smirked, leaning against my counter. "If we hadn't pushed you out, you'd be nothing. You should be grateful, grateful, for being discarded." I shook my head, my hands trembling. "You didn't push me out. You erased me to make room for your real family. And now you want me to bankroll them." "No way." Mom's voice turned venomous. "You're selfish, Lena. Always have been. Those are your siblings. You owe them after everything I did for you." I stepped closer, my anger spilling over. "I don't owe them or you anything. You chose David and the twins. You told me I wasn't worth keeping. Live with that choice." David's face hardened. "You think you're so special, don't you? But you're nothing to us. Never were." The words cut, but I stood my ground. "Then why are you here, begging for my money?" I shot back. Mom's eyes flashed with rage. "We didn't want to come here, but the twins deserve a future. If you weren't so damn selfish, you'd see that." I pointed to the door. "Get out, now, or I'm calling the police." Mom grabbed David's arm, muttering, "You'll regret this." As they stormed out, I locked the door, my heart pounding. I wasn't the scared 16-year-old they'd thrown away. I was done letting them define me. The confrontation on my doorstep should have been the end of it. I'd stood my ground, locked the door on Mom and David, and vowed to move forward. But people like them don't vanish quietly. 2 weeks later, the fallout began, and it was uglier than I'd imagined. It started at work, of all places. I was in a meeting, pitching a new software feature to our CEO, when my coworker Sarah texted me, "Lena, your mom's here. She's freaking out in the lobby." My stomach dropped. I excused myself, my palms sweating as I hurried to the front desk. The scene was chaos. Mom stood in the middle of our sleek, glass-walled lobby, her coat askew, shouting at the receptionist, "I need to see Lena Carter. She can't hide from her own mother." Employees peered over their monitors, whispering. The security guard, a burly guy named Mike, was trying to calm her down, but she wasn't having it. "You don't understand," she yelled, her voice echoing off the marble floors. "She owes us. After everything I've done." She's turning her back on her family. I froze in the hallway, mortified. This was my workplace, my sanctuary, the place I'd built my reputation, and here was Mom, tearing it apart. I stepped forward, my voice low but firm. "Mom, you need to leave." Her eyes locked onto me, wild with rage. "Oh, there you are. Think you can ignore me? Think you're too good for us now?" Mike put a hand on her arm, guiding her toward the exit, but she yanked free, pointing at me. "You're a selfish brat, Lena. Always have been. You're sitting in your fancy office while your siblings suffer." The word siblings hit like a punch. Mia and Ethan weren't my responsibility. They were hers. But she was spinning a narrative, playing the martyr for an audience of strangers. I kept my composure, nodding to Mike. "Please escort her out." As he led her away, she screamed, You'll regret this. Lena, you're nothing without me. The glass doors swung shut, muffling her voice, but the damage was done. My co-workers stared, some with pity, others with curiosity. I apologized to the receptionist, my cheeks burning, and retreated to my office. I closed the door, sank into my chair, and buried my face in my hands. This wasn't just embarrassment. It was an invasion. Mom had crossed a line, dragging my past into the life I'd fought to build. I alerted HR, filing a formal complaint and adding Mom to the list of restricted visitors. My manager, a kind woman named Priya, pulled me aside later. Lena, are you okay? We've got your back. Her support meant everything, but the humiliation lingered. I'd worked years to earn respect here, and in one tantrum, Mom had turned me into office gossip. I drove home that night, the Seattle skyline blurring through my windshield, wondering how much worse this could get. The answer came a week later. On a rainy Thursday evening, I pulled into my condo's driveway, the wipers slapping against the downpour, and saw a figure pacing under the streetlight. It was Mom, soaked to the bone, her hair plastered to her face. My heart sank. I considered driving away, but this was my home. She didn't get to chase me out. I stepped out of my car, clutching my umbrella, and called out, "What are you doing here?" She stormed toward me, her boots splashing in puddles. "You think you can shut me out?" she screamed. "You think you can pretend we don't exist?" Her voice was shrill, cutting through the rain. I backed toward my door, keeping my tone steady. "Go home, Mom. This is over." But she wasn't listening. She jabbed a finger at me, her face twisted with fury. "You owe us, Lena. You owe Mia and Ethan. They're your family, and you're letting them down." I shook my head, rain dripping down my neck. "They're your kids, not mine. You made your choices live with them." That set her off. She lunged forward, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Don't you dare talk to me like that," she shrieked. "I gave you everything. I sacrificed my life for you." I yanked free, my umbrella clattering to the ground. "Sacrificed? You threw me out at 16. You told me I wasn't worth keeping." Her eyes blazed, and she reached for my phone as I pulled it out to call 911. "You're not calling the cops on your own mother," she yelled, clawing at my hand. I stumbled back, heart racing. As she screamed incoherently about loyalty and betrayal, neighbors emerged, drawn by the noise. Mr. Thompson, a retired firefighter who lived next door, stepped between us. "Ma'am, back off," he said, his voice calm but firm. Mom shoved at him, shouting, "She's a liar. She's always been a selfish little brat." Mrs. Lee, my neighbor across the street, was already on her phone, calling the police. More porch lights flicked on, silhouettes watching the spectacle. Mom's voice grew hysterical, her accusations wilder. "You think you're better than us. Lena, you're nothing. You'll always be nothing." The words stung, but I refused to break. "Leave," I said, my voice cold, "or you'll be arrested." She laughed, a bitter, jagged sound, and made another grab for my phone. Mr. Thompson held her back, his grip gentle but unyielding. Sirens cut through the rain, red and blue lights flashing as a police car pulled up. Two officers approached, their radios crackling. Mom went limp, suddenly sobbing, playing the victim. "She's my daughter," she cried. "She's turning her back on her own family." I explained everything: the office incident, the doorstep demands, tonight's attack. Mr. Thompson and Mrs. Lee backed me up, their statements calm and clear. The officers, a young man and a woman named Officer Ruiz, listened patiently. "We'll handle it," Ruiz said, her eyes kind but professional. They escorted Mom to their car, her sobs fading as they drove away. I stood in the driveway, drenched and shaking, as neighbors offered awkward reassurances. "You don't deserve this," Mrs. Lee said, handing me my umbrella. I thanked her, my voice hollow, and went inside. My condo, usually a haven, felt violated. I locked the door, sank onto the couch, and stared at the rain streaking my windows. Mom's words echoed selfish. "Nothing, brat." But they didn't break me. They reminded me who I was, a woman who'd survived her abandonment, who'd built a life despite her cruelty. She couldn't take that away. The next morning, I went to the police station, my resolve hardened. Officer Ruiz helped me file for a restraining order, walking me through the paperwork with a quiet efficiency. "You're doing the right thing," she said, handing me a card for a local counselor. I thanked her, tucking the card away. When I told my grandparents, Grandpa's face reddened with anger. "She's lost her damn mind," he said, slamming a fist on the table. Grandma's eyes brimmed with tears. "We should have done more. Lena, we let you carry too much alone." I squeezed her hand, insisting they'd been my lifeline. "You gave me a home," I said. That was enough. The incident left scars, but it also clarified something. Mom wasn't my family anymore. She was a stranger, consumed by her own narrative, and I was done letting her chaos define me. I had a life to protect, a career to nurture, and people who truly cared. Whatever came next, I'd face it on my terms. The restraining order brought a fragile peace. For the first time in weeks, I could walk into my condo without scanning the street for Mom's silhouette. I threw myself into work, leading my team through a high-stakes project that could land us a major client. My days were packed strategy meetings, code reviews, late-night emails, but the routine grounded me. My condo became a refuge again, its walls adorned with my sketches and shelves lined with sci-fi novels. I'd sit on my balcony at dusk, watching the ferries glide across Puget Sound, and feel a quiet pride. This was my life, hard-won and wholly mine. But the real anchor through the storm was Aunt Clara. She'd been my rock since I was 16, stepping in when Mom cast me out, co-signing my loans without a second thought. Her faith in me, fierce, unwavering, had carried me through college and beyond. After Mom's meltdown, Clara became a daily presence, calling to check in or texting me memes to make me laugh. "You're tougher than titanium, Lena," she'd say, her voice warm with pride. Don't let her dim your shine. Her words were a balm, healing wounds I'd carried too long. Clara never asked for anything, but I saw the sacrifices she made. She was a high school teacher, her salary stretched thin by her kids' needs braces. Soccer camp, a car that broke down every winter. She'd dreamed of a family vacation to Hawaii for years, poring over travel magazines at her kitchen table, but always put it off. "Maybe next year," she'd say, shrugging, as she paid another bill. I wanted to change that, not to repay her. Nothing could but to show what she meant to me. She'd given me a future. I wanted to give her a moment of joy. I spent weeks planning the surprise. I booked a week-long trip to Maui for Clara, her husband Tom, and their teens, Sophie and Jake. The package was perfect. Flights, a beachfront condo with a lanai overlooking the ocean, a snorkeling tour, and a luau under the stars. I worked with a travel agent to add personal touches, a lei greeting at the airport, a private hula lesson for Sophie, who loved to dance. The cost wasn't small, but it felt right, a way to honor the woman who'd changed my life. I tucked the itinerary into a handmade card, my sketch of a Hawaiian sunset on the cover. Inside, I wrote, "For Clara, who gave me the world. This is for you." I drove to Clara's house on a crisp Saturday morning, the card in my bag. Her home was a cozy rambler, the front yard dotted with Sophie's soccer balls and Jake's skateboard. Clara greeted me with a hug, her apron dusted with flour from baking. "Lena, perfect timing. I'm making blueberry muffins." We sat at her kitchen table, the smell of coffee and pastries filling the air. I slid the card across, my heart racing. "This is for you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She raised an eyebrow, opening the card. Her eyes scanned the itinerary, then widened. "Lena, what is this?" she gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Hawaii. For all of us." I nodded, grinning. "You've always wanted to go. It's time." Her fingers trembled as she read the details, snorkeling. "The luau, the condo. This is too much," she said, her voice cracking. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did," I said, my throat tight. "You didn't just co-sign alone, Clara. You saw me when I felt invisible. You believed I could be something when I didn't believe it myself. You're my family, not because you had to be, but because you chose to be." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she shook her head. "I didn't do it for anything in return. Sweetheart, I did it because you're worth it. You've always been worth it." She stood, pulling me into a hug so tight I could feel her heartbeat. Sophie and Jake wandered in, curious, and Clara showed them the itinerary. "We're going to Hawaii," she said, her voice bright with wonder. The kids whooped, already debating whether to surf or hike first. Tom joined us, his quiet smile saying more than words. "You're something else, Lena," he said, squeezing my shoulder. We spent the morning dreaming up their trip, laughing over Jake's plan to befriend a shark and Sophie's insistence on learning the hula. That moment, Clara's tears, the kids' excitement, the warmth of their kitchen crystallized something for me. Family isn't blood or obligation. It's the people who show up, who see you, who stay through the mess. Clara had done that, not just with the loan, but with every call, every hug, every quiet affirmation. My grandparents, too, had been my haven, and they made their stance clear after Mom's chaos. "We're done with her," Grandpa said over dinner, his voice heavy with finality. "She's burned every bridge. You're our priority." "Lena," Grandma nodded, her hand over mine. "We love you like our own. Always will." I heard whispers about Mom and David through the family grapevine. Their finances were crumbling. David's pharmacy had cut hours, and Mom's overtime wasn't enough. Mia and Ethan were scraping by at community college, their dreams of 4-year schools on hold. I didn't feel guilt or glee, just a numb detachment. They'd built their life on choices that excluded me, and I wasn't responsible for fixing it. My focus was on the people who mattered, Clara, my grandparents, my friends who'd become family. They were my home, my strength, my reason to keep going. As I drove back to my condo, the Seattle skyline glowing against the twilight, I felt lighter. Mom's shadow still loomed, but it was fading. I'd built a life I was proud of, surrounded by love that didn't demand or discard. Clara's trip was a small gesture in the face of her endless support, but it was mine to give, and in giving it, I reclaimed a piece of myself, the part that still believed in love, in family, in the possibility of good. 6 months after the restraining order, I'd settled into a cautious rhythm. Work was thriving. My team's project landed the client, earning me a bonus I tucked away for a rainy day. My condo felt like home again, its quiet evenings filled with jazz playlists and sketch sessions. I'd started therapy, too, at Officer Ruiz's suggestion, unpacking the weight of Mom's betrayal with a counselor named Dr. Patel. It wasn't easy. Some sessions left me raw, tears staining my notebook, but it was helping me see myself beyond the girl Mom discarded. I was Lena Carter, a woman who'd built a life from ashes, and I was proud of her. Then, on a chilly March evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, Lena, it's Ethan, your brother. Can we talk? I want to know you." I froze, my coffee mug halfway to my lips. Ethan and Mia were ghosts from my past, toddlers. When I left home at 16, I'd seen them in Mom's Facebook photos before I blocked her gap-toothed smiles at birthday parties, matching backpacks on their first day of school. They were strangers, tied to the family that rejected me. Was this a ploy? Another way for Mom to claw back into my life? But the message felt different, tentative, genuine. I typed back, "Why now?" and hit send, my heart pounding. He called minutes later, his voice young but steady, tinged with nerves. "Lena, it's Ethan. I know this is random, and I'm sorry if it's weird." I leaned against my kitchen counter, staring at the city lights beyond my window. "It's unexpected," I said, keeping my tone neutral. He took a breath, then plunged in. "I'm 19. At community college, growing up, Mom and Dad said you left because you wanted to, that you were, I don't know, trouble. But I started hearing things from Aunt Clara, from cousins at a family reunion last summer. They told me what really happened, how Mom and Dad pushed you out. It's messed up, Lena." I can't stop thinking about it. His words hit like a wave, stirring emotions I'd buried. "What do you want?" "Ethan," I asked, my voice softer than I intended. He paused, choosing his words. "I want to know you. You're my sister. And I don't even know your favorite color or what you do for a living. I hate that their choices took that from us. I'm not asking you to forgive Mom or Dad. I don't even know if I do. I just want a chance to be your brother. If you'll let me." I sank onto a bar stool, my mind racing. For years, I'd lumped Ethan and Mia in with Mom and David, part of the perfect family that erased me. But Ethan's voice wasn't manipulative or entitled. It was raw, vulnerable, like he was reaching across a chasm. "It's not easy for me," I said finally. "I've spent a long time closing that door. Trust doesn't come quick." He nodded. I could hear it in his voice. "I get it. I'm not asking for everything at once. Maybe just a call, or coffee if you're ever ready. I want to hear your story, not the lies they told us." His honesty disarmed me. I'd built walls to protect myself, but Ethan wasn't the enemy. He was a kid caught in mom's web, just like I'd been. Why now? I pressed, needing to understand. He sighed. I'm starting to figure out who I am. You know, college, moving out, all that. And I keep thinking about the sister I never got to know. Clara showed me a photo of you at your college graduation, smiling with her. You looked strong. I want to know that person, not mom's version of you. The mention of Clara softened me. She'd always believed in bridges, even when I burned them. I stared at my sketchbook, open to a half-finished drawing of the Seattle skyline. Okay, I said at last. We can start with a call, maybe coffee down the line, but I need to take this slow. His relief was palpable. Thank you, Lena. That's more than I hoped for. We talked for nearly 2 hours, tentative at first, then easier. He was studying engineering, loved Star Wars and spicy ramen, and had a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard. I shared bits of my life, my job, my art, my obsession with old jazz records. We didn't touch Mom or David, an unspoken agreement to keep the call clean. It felt like meeting a stranger who shared your DNA, awkward but promising. When we hung up, I sat in the dark, the city humming beyond my window. Ethan's call had cracked open, a door I thought was bolted shut. The next week, we texted sporadically memes, quick updates about his midterms or my latest project. He sent a photo of his dorm room, a messy tangle of textbooks and empty coffee cups. I sent one of my latest sketch, a ferry cutting through Puget Sound. It was small, fragile, but real. I told Clara about it over lunch, her eyes lighting up. He's a good kid, Lena, she said. Give him a chance, but protect your heart. I nodded, grateful for her wisdom. Therapy helped. too, Dr. Patel guided me through the tangle of hope and fear, reminding me I could set boundaries without shutting Ethan out. I'm still cautious. Trust is a muscle I'm relearning, and Mom's shadow looms large. Part of me wonders if Ethan's motives will shift, if he'll ask for money or pull me back into their chaos. But for now, he's just a 9-year-old kid who wants a sister, and I'm starting to want a brother. We're planning to meet for coffee next month, at a neutral spot downtown. It's a small step, but it feels like mine to take. For the first time, I see a chance to reclaim something Mom stole, not her love, but a connection with someone who sees me, not her lies. Whatever comes next, I'm ready to face it, one careful step at a time.